Okay, for the relationship between polar and rectangular, polar and Cartesian, we've done this in several situations. We construct this, and from this sine theta is y over r, or y is r sine theta. X is r cosine theta, and by the Pythagorean theorem, x squared plus y squared equals r squared. Now we're going to convert this polar equation to a Cartesian equation, and then with that Cartesian equation we're going to manipulate it algebraically to identify the graph. Now before I do this, why do we have polar coordinates as opposed to just rectangular? The reason why is polar, when you have certain graphs, cardioids, other certain graphs, they're easier to work with in polar coordinates. It's just an easier equation. And so the purpose of different coordinate systems is because they're easier to work in for certain figures. For example, cylindrical coordinates, as you study in higher level math, those are nice to use when you're dealing with cylinders. Spherical coordinates is when you're dealing with spheres, like in the universe is kind of modeled as spheres, and spherical coordinates are a lot of times used when studying astronomy. But that's the reason why we have different coordinate systems. But let's do this process here. So we need to make these substitutions. To substitute for y, we needed r sine theta, and for x we needed r cosine. And for r squared, for x squared plus y squared, we need an r squared. Well, there's a few things we could do here. We could solve for r, plug in the square root of x squared plus y squared. Cosine theta is x over r. We could plug that in there. That's one way. But I'm going to do it a different way. I'm going to multiply this equation by r. So when I multiply both sides by r, this is what we get. Now, it's very straightforward to plug these in. R squared is x squared plus y squared. 2r cosine theta. R cosine theta is x. 4r sine theta, but r sine theta is y. And here's our Cartesian equation. Now, you might want to plug in the square root of x squared plus y squared. For cosine, plug in x over r, manipulate that, and you're going to get the same equation here. But anyways, now we're asked to figure out what's the graph of this. Well, to figure this out, let's get everything on one side. So bring in the 2x over, it changes sign. The negative 4y becomes a positive. Now we complete the square. Half of negative 2 is negative 1, and negative 1 squared is positive 1. But if I add 1 to the left side, I got to compensate with 1 on the right. Half of 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4, so I add 4 to both sides. And this factors 2x plus half of that is negative 1. This factors to y plus half of 4 is positive 2. And this adds up to 5. So we can now see this is a circle centered at 1, negative 2, and the radius is the square root of 5.